You're listening to Living Millennial Podcast, a podcast that features and celebrates Black millennials doing amazing things in industries that they're in. We'll tap into all things trending and some that aren't. Let's get deep fast. Hey, y'all, welcome back to Living Millennial. I am one of your hosts, Brittany, and we don't have Mandisa with us today. She is living her best life with her family, spending much needed time with them. However, Living Millennial Podcast, as you all know, we love celebrating Black millennial voices, experiences, and perspectives. And I have a special guest today. I have Octavia Carson, so that I'm not alone. Welcome. Tell our audience a bit about yourself to get us started.
All right. Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me on. My name is Octavia Carson, and now I officially have the Esquire at the end. My pronouns are they, them. Let's see. I graduated from law school last year, May 2020. I was a valedictorian of my class. Then I got licensed in the District of Columbia, where I live now. Then I got licensed in California, where I used to live, and I hope to go back to. Currently, I work as an attorney advisor for the Board of Immigration Appeals, and that's in the Executive Office of Immigration Review, and that's all for the Department of Justice. I received that position through the prestigious Department of Justice Attorney General Honors Program. And I'm also the executive director and founder of the Community Fund for Black Bar Applicants. I also call it the Black Bar Applicant Fund for short. That fund we'll probably get into a little bit more, but basically we help raise money for other Black bar applicants to give them financial support while they study for the bar exam, because it's really expensive. And I'm also a pre-law coach. I help people with their application for law school. I help them figure out their goals for like which law school they want to go to, how to get their resume together, their cover letter, their personal statement, all that good stuff. I'm a scholarship coach as well. A bit of background about me and why I started to do that is I am a scholarship baby. I went to undergrad and law school on full rides. I did not pay for any of my education. I did not pay for any of my study abroad. I've traveled to 26 countries and counting, and majority of those countries were paid for because I was a student. Yes. So I know how to help people level up and get that money for school. And I've been doing that with the Lawyer Bay organization. It's pretty big on Instagram. You can just follow them at Lawyer Bay. I'm also the membership coordinator. So if other lawyers want to join, they can be placed on the directory. They can get a spotlight on our Instagram page. And that's all I'm gonna hit y'all with today, because that was cool, and we can go over more another day.
I mean, at this point, it's like, what don't you do? That is dope. That's amazing.
I'm trying to do stuff that I want to do.
So I was actually going to ask about, you were talking about helping with the pre-law process, right? Yeah. And which is interesting because once upon a time, not long ago, actually a couple years ago, I was actually, I'm trying to think of, I lost my words.
You were
I was studying for the LSAT. That lets you know how that process went for me, huh? Because I didn't wipe it out of my brain. Couldn't even say it.
I didn't do well on my LSAT. That is my testimony. I took it one time. Both times I took the exam, I suffered a great loss in my family. I lost my grandma. I lost my younger cousin. Both times, like, I was ready. I had my books. I should have done a class, but like I couldn't afford it. But I definitely recommend, if you got a couple extra dollars, or if you can fundraise somehow or get the money from your family, pay for that LSAT course. I'm gonna be honest, I tell people, I brag about it. I scored a 141 the first time, which is garbage. And I think I leveled up and got a 149 the second time.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was just I was grieving heavily. I was not like mentally ready to take the LSAT, but I was ready to go to law school. Crazy enough. I just needed, it was a few months in between the LSAT and law school. So I just needed those few months to like, pump myself up. Yeah. And I told myself when I go to law school, I'm just show out. I'm gonna do it for my family. And that's what I did. I pretty much got all A's, every single class. I was on point. People didn't know how. People would ask me, how did you do this? I'm like, I would tell you, but we're competition right now.
Not competition.
Law school is graded on the curve. No, I helped a lot of people. I helped a lot of people in law school. I did like teacher assistant and just spent extra time helping people.
That's amazing.
I mean, the highest grade I think you can get is like a 180 or 185. There's no passing it per se, but like if you get a 160, you got a good shot at getting into a good law school. And if you get 170, you pretty much get into whatever law school you want to. But 141 and 149 is like, you shouldn't really be getting into law school.
Right.
But really good grades in undergrad. My resume was good. My cover letter was good. My personal statement was good. I knew how to fill out the application. I knew how to answer every addendum in the way that would catch their eye. And that's what I teach people in my pre-law coaching. Like, how do you make it without having like the perfect scores and grades and all that?
Yeah, which is a true testimony to the fact that like test scores don't necessarily give you an example. Well, it gives you an example, but it doesn't necessarily tell you what the person can really do just by like the numbers alone or that number alone. Like, because when that passion is there, when that fuel is there, when you have your ancestors, you know what I'm saying, guiding you and pushing you through. Come on now, you
exactly.
Come on, you can do anything. So that's amazing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. The claim to fame to the LSAT specifically is that it will tell a law school how well someone's going to do on the bar exam or whether or not they're going to pass. And I passed the bar exam, the California bar exam, on the first try. And the passage rate, it was like, I think 27% passage rate or something like that. It was real low, under 50% for sure. But like either it was 27% passage rate or 37%. I think 37% is too high. I really think it was 27%. But yeah, the passage rate is super low. People who go to the law school I went to, people who get the LSAT score I went to, don't pass on the first try statistically. But I've trained myself to not become a statistic a lot throughout my life. I mean,
I love that.
I just like, power through either way. Yeah. And I try to help other people do it too.
I love that. That says a lot about your focus, right? On your goals and the fact that like tunnel vision on
it's
what
all
it is
about
you gotta do.
Me. It's all about me and what I'm about to provide, like it's not about the statistics. It's not about what they think about my background, what they are going to prejudge me for. Like as soon as I walk into an interview, as soon as I walk into a classroom, people forget what may be on the paper that they didn't like, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. Ooh, tell that. Come on now. We about to shift this. Look, we already in a discussion. Forget the game, forget everything else. Because that's real. Oh, I do have a question too. Have you worked with the Earl B. Gilliam Association?
Yes.
So Andrea and Marissa.
Everybody. The whole gang.
Yeah, whole gang. Genevieve.
Genevieve. She was a great mentor while I was in law school. Even when I wasn't physically in her presence, just like watching her lead. She's another person that breaks statistics all the time. Like she went from a public defender to running for a district attorney, and she had a great run. The other side wasn't whatever they was doing. I ain't gonna even comment. But
you won't even mention that name.
It was the establishment. She was up against the establishment. So Earl B. Gilliam was a great support system. I always tell people who are going to law school, it's probably the same for people who are trying to do med school, who are trying to become accountants, who are trying to be PAs, physician assistants, whatever your area you're trying to go to, look for your niche group that are gathering to fundraise or do socials and stuff like that. So for the law and for Black people in the law, you want to look for groups of people who are coming together for the purpose of elevating Black people in the law. So Earl B. Gilliam bar association is a Black Bar Association in San Diego. And immediately I got connected with them. I joined, I went to their backyard parties. I talked to everybody. I was there, you know, listening to all the advice they had to give. And next thing you know, I was also volunteering at their events. And next thing you know, I was receiving a $12,000 scholarship from them based off of grades, but also really based off of reputation. I've heard what happened at that table when they were deciding who was going to get that jackpot. And they were like, hey, everybody easily, oh, Octavia, yeah, I saw them at this event. You know what I mean? Like, everybody knew me. And so based off reputation alone, I was already ahead of the game. And that goes for a lot of other Black bars. So I hardly went to LA like for events and stuff like that, but I was very involved with the LA Black Bar Association, which is called the Langston Bar Association. And I want to say a $12,000 scholarship from them too. Yeah, no, when I was in law school, I got
Let me borrow $1. I'm just kidding.
I was in law school, I got over like $300,000 in scholarships. I ain't even playing.
Wow.
I ain't even playing. But
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah,
that says a lot about being purposeful and networking. I think we forget, especially when it comes to education, I think we forget that like networking and reciting your passions and getting involved in associations and things like that, that's important to do. It's important to do. It's important to get good grades and study and things like that. But ultimately, especially for those of us who have personalities that stand out more than their grades, aka me, that's important. That's very important to do. So I'm glad you're here as a testimony to that, for real, or testament to that.
I hope people follow through and go to Lawyer Bay's page, go to their bio, click that link, and look into getting a scholarship coach, resume coach, cover letter coach, statement coach, whatever they need to like propel themselves in their industry. So mostly lawyers, though, mostly catering to lawyers.
Lawyers, thank you.
Yeah, but I'm helping other people with their resumes and stuff too.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that too, because again, it sounds like, you know, your passion is really leaking out for others, right? Like, and you're giving back because you've been given so much, you know, to literally go through. It sounds like majority of your higher education, right? Undergrad and pre-law and law school, all those things, like to do that and to be able to do that without having to dig in your own pockets. Like, you know,
I ain't had no pockets to dig in. I ain't even gonna lie.
See?
What motivated me was like my parents were arguing one day after I had got into I got accepted to like 20 schools, and I was getting like a little scholarship here, a little scholarship there. And my parents was like, oh, Tay's gonna have to go to Eastern University. One of the, you know, it wasn't on top of my list to go to, right? I really wanted to go to University of Michigan, Michigan State, Emory, you know, like these like pseudo Ivy League schools. And my parents were just like, yelling, they don't even go together. You know what I mean? Like my parents aren't even together. They normally are real copacetic, like real get along, good co-parents and all of that. But this was just a really big source of stress for them. Like, how are we going to pay for our first child's schooling when my dad had a second child my sister was about to go to school the next year. And then my brother was coming down the line about to go to school like a few years after that. So for them, and then my parents just they finances not set up like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They just always
first generation going into college.
Yeah. They just always been making it. So I was gonna make the sacrifice and just go to Eastern. I was gonna cry. I was like, I don't know how long I'm gonna last. I'm gonna leave, go back to the little Coney Island restaurant that I was working at and flip burgers and sell hot dogs because I don't want to be there, you know, until I had, you know, that networking part came through and people were like, oh, here's a full ride for Central Michigan University, apply for this. the deadline, like the next day, you know what I did? I stayed up all night at the school. I was at the school. The teacher was like, you know, I put together my whole portfolio. I did some graphic designs, photoshopping. I typed out a whole bunch of explanations for like each. I was in journalism. So each article that I wrote, all the designs that I created, I went out and got a binder. I put it all together. I wrote my personal statement. I was raw. I was real about like the situation I was going through. I lived with my grandma at the time. I didn't even live with my mom. I was sleeping like on the floor most nights or whatever, just trying to make it because I had to, you know, live with my grandma, and she had like 6 other people in a 2-bedroom apartment, you know?
Oh, wow.
So I like poured out everything I was going through, but also showed them like, look at all this other stuff that I'm doing, even while like I'm good under pressure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not really about you feeling bad for me. It's just like, look, I'm strong.
Yeah.
So I put that application together in like a day. Then I had my professor or teacher at the time read over my materials. I had like 3, the rule of 3 for these applications and stuff. They have 3 people read over everything, because somebody gonna catch something, and somebody gonna have some good ideas, and someone else is gonna like just be real about it, right? So I had 3 teachers, and I think the counselor read over everything. I made the edits immediately. You know, that was my priority. No other school assignment. Me, my mom, and my grandma, we like said prayers over the binder, sealed it up in an envelope, sent it first class, like immediately out. You know what? Actually, I think the deadline was so close. We put it in the envelope to do all of that, but my grandma ended up driving it to the office of the guy who was taking the applications, and she left it at the office. Right. Oh my God. We was on a mission and people give up when it's a last minute deadline. They're like, no, I'm not gonna do nothing. Don't wait till the last minute. But if it's a last minute thing, do it. Still do it. It's like it's like, you know, I don't know. It's that buzzer shot.
Oh, that buzzer beater?
That buzzer beater shot. Yeah, you know, it's, you know, other sports reference. Yeah, so we did that, and I got a call back like a few weeks later, and my teacher picked up the phone, and my teacher was like, you got a call from this person. I'm like, okay, hey, what's going on? It's Octavia. And they were like, you just got a full ride. And I was like, is this a scam? They're like, we're gonna pay for your whole school and everything. I'm like, for real? Yeah.
That's amazing. Did you cry? I would have
I cried. But I delayed because I still couldn't get it in my head that it was real. So I told my mom, I was like, Mom, look, talk to this person. And she talked to them. She's like, it's legit. I'm like, all right. Then I bust out crying.
That's amazing.
They put out a newspaper article. Random people was recognizing me. It was crazy. And then I still kept getting scholarships at that school. And that summer before I went to school too.
That's amazing. That says a lot about the work you put in. And I think that's what this conversation is really gonna evolve into, or even more, is like the work that we put in into whatever it is that we're doing. And when we put in our all, when we stay focused, and we don't do things half-assed, we're gonna get everything we want back like tenfold.
I think to bring it back to the name of the podcast, Living Millennial, I think that is exactly what it's like. I mean, post-millennial, like, what is it? Our Gen Zs.
Our Gen Zers, yeah.
Yeah. They're also hard workers and have to work very hard for the most basic things. But I think this is controversial, but the people who came before millennials didn't necessarily have to do the stuff that we had to do. And I say that not to say that they're not hard workers, but like the bare minimum, like we have to work so hard just for the bare minimum. I know my grandparents moved up from down south to work in Michigan in the car industry and stuff like that. So my granddad with a third grade education, my grandma, none of them graduated from high school. None of my grandparents graduated from high school. Maybe my grandma, but I don't even think she worked right away. Like my granddad was my other grandma, my dad's mom. Yeah, but most of them, they ain't graduated from high school. No like specific training in anything, but they were working in the factories. You know what I mean? So that their generation has sources of income that didn't require just like being super creative and just like scraping, you know what I mean? We're literally building and inventing our sources of income these days. We're building and inventing new ways to pay for school, to pay for medical care, the price of living, the cost of healthcare, the cost of everything is so exponential right now that it's like you cannot make it. You like cannot make it without putting in some sort of effort. So I think what I'm doing is just like it's just a mirror of like what it's like being a millennial.
I totally agree. To sum everything up you just said, like we basically have to like what I say is we have to dig ourselves out of the holes that was created for us. Right? We're living in the decisions that were made before we even got here.
Yep.
You know, and they were as well. However, I think even the generations before the boomers and the Gen Xers, which is like my parents' generation, like, you know, they were still focused on like sustaining the country, like just the stability of a country. The economy was in a different state. And, you know, it's just different for us right now. And though millennials are thriving in some areas, we cannot ignore the fact that, you know, there's other areas where we're struggling, where we have to work 10 times harder. And you used a great word. I use this word all the time too, but we have to be innovative with what is given to us. And I give us a shout out all the time because I feel like we've created a blueprint to survive this shit, right?
Yeah, survival guide. Like how to survive there is no like sources of stable income. No, when the housing market is in a flux, housing and renting market is in a flux, when everybody just out there trying to get a buck, you know, like how to survive that.
Exactly.
How to survive that during global warming, like major global warming. We're experiencing so much global warming side effects that it's ridiculous. Like the amount of fires, the amount of just like the disease that we just had to dealing with COVID, just how it's impacting our food and all of that. It's just like
the ocean just set on fire.
Yeah.
Who else can say that? Like, and they didn't even make it a big deal, which blew my mind.
We had to go to work the next day.
But the ocean was on fire. I saw this funny TikTok today, and he was like, okay, so we just completely let it go over our heads that the ocean was on fire. They were like, you know, water was on fire. The thing that's not supposed to be on fire was on fire. And he was like, so what happens when all the water is gone? Like, how you gonna bring the fires out with pot lids? I was cracking up. I was like, ooh. He was like, we gotta address this. But yeah, we've already lived through so much. I'm only 31 and I'm like, damn, I already got so many stories to tell. And like, I can't wait to see this replay, you know, as history for some people. I'm very interested to see how people tell the story of this generation.
Oh my gosh.
The past 10 years.
Yeah.
Very interested.
There's no chill.
Thank you for making that connection, because that's exactly where it all kind of connects, along with like, you know, living single. Yes.
that part too. I
You
was
caught
like,
that part too. But yeah, it all connects because, and that's why I created this space to highlight, you know, just the dope and innovative, right, things that we're doing despite all the BS that's happening. Like we're adapting and we're still grinding and we're still hustling and we're still sharing and giving back and we're still creating a legacy and we're learning more. Not only are we learning how to get support for ourselves, but we're learning how to support others. And I think that's such a dope thing to do, and such a dope conversation to have. Like even in asking, like, even with asking, like, hey, have you been thinking about seeing a therapist or someone or like thereof or anything like that? And I just think it's interesting, at least amongst my friends, I'll say that, at least amongst my friends and what I'm seeing on my feed and social media. But I did want to ask you, we're going to completely skip the game segment because I'm already having a good time. I'm already having a good time. We could play it if you want to later, but it's not as good as this. So,
okay.
But I want to ask, because we talked a little bit before this, and you were telling me about your experience in getting educated, like for a lifetime. Basically, you went to PWIs.
I mean, I'm from Michigan, so that is not rare. It's like pretty commonplace. If you come from a neighborhood like Pontiac, Detroit, Flint, somewhat of Saginaw, somewhat of Grand Rapids, these like majority Black neighborhoods, you'll have a lot of Black people who leave after elementary school from their majority Black public schools or charter schools and go to a majority white school. They do a lot of lottery and busing. So lottery is just like, if you're in these target neighborhoods, they'll pick your name out and allow you to go to a school in a better area. Yeah.
So basically, just what Kamala Harris was putting Joe on blast for.
Right. I mean, personally, I would like to see more kids who are currently in my position not have to leave their neighborhood to go to a better school and leave an area where people look like them to go to a better school where people don't look like them.
Yeah. But tell us about that experience for you, though. Especially, I mean, I didn't go to a predominantly white school until high school, but even then it wasn't really predominantly white. Like we had a whole mixture. So
mixed with people.
Yeah. But I definitely want to know more about that experience for you.
Yeah. So after elementary school, my mom and I decided that I needed to get out of the Pontiac Public School District, which there's barely a Pontiac Public School District now anyway. It's dwindled down so much. But I left there and went to a private school called the Academy of Sacred Heart. It's a Catholic school. I was like 1 year, 7th grade, I was the only Black girl in my class. It was an all-girls school. And 6th grade, I mean, it was like 1 or 2 or 3 or something like that. It was so dismal. Like, and then 8th grade, there was a huge spike where there were a lot more Black girls. I mean, I would say like spike as in like 7 of the 50 in our class or something like that was Black, you know, and that was because another school who had more Black kids merged with our school. Okay. So, and then they left the next year and it was back to me being one of the only ones. Yeah. So for me, I just wanted to fit in for real, you know, like in middle school, I got made fun of. For most of the time, I don't even know why for real. Like, why are they picking on me? But it was a lot of like messing with how I talk. So I tried to go home one day and talk like a Valley girl, you know? And my mom was like, looked at me, she was like, don't you talk to me like that? She was like, don't change the way you talk. She knew exactly what I was doing. And ever since then, I done graduated law school talking the same. Like I still speak I still speak African American vernacular English. I can't say
Come on
ass.
with it.
I don't know how to say it. You know, like toilet. You know what I mean? Tissue, scrimp, all of that. Same words that
Come on
I
with it.
was saying before I went to that school, because my mom validated me and she let me know I didn't need to change, and I know I didn't. And it's not, you know, it's not like I'm still smart, you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
what people need to realize. That goes around in our own community where we say, oh, you talk smart, talk
You
standard
got to code
English.
switch. You got to
Yeah,
code
no.
switch. And a lot of us, I agree, a lot of us hold on to like respectability politics. And
Exactly.
we're learning now that that don't mean shit.
Exactly. So I survived that and then decided to put myself in the same predicament, but I got that full ride, you know, when going to Central Michigan University in college, you know, I was one of the few Black people there. But I stayed true to myself, you know, like, so my first year, I was in a journalism program. So I was on a newspaper writing articles and stuff. And immediately, like, I had a roommate who told me, like, don't you like chicken with hot sauce and watermelon and like all the stereotypes, right? And you know what? I was like, I'm gonna write an article about this and about microaggressions. So I wrote a whole article about microaggressions, how dangerous they were, and how, because some people don't know this language, like this knowledge of this language, having a vocabulary like that is powerful. Because like you can tell somebody treating you different, or other people may be treating you different and not know what they're doing. So once you put that word in their mind and say, like, this is a microaggression, you point it out and you say, like, these are different microaggressions. Not that I'm about to sit here and teach everybody, you know, what their racism is, their internalized racism is, but I enjoy writing on those topics. I went to a lot of like events held by the Black Student Organization, and I joined a multicultural sorority. For me, there was no other option. You know, I wasn't gonna put myself in even more of a situation where I was outnumbered. You know, I really needed to feel validated and like I was important and like I mattered. You know, and I just didn't feel like that most of the time in a all white class. And then the next year my second year, I became a multicultural advisor, which was basically like a resident assistant or a resident advisor. I don't remember what they call it, the RAs in the building. So I lived in the building with my residents, and I was supposed to help keep the recidivism rate up for minorities. So I would go around and create events to make them feel like, you know, more comfortable, have conversations about like, you know, how we could make the hall more like diverse and just like a better atmosphere for minorities, right? And I would put all these education posts up and all of that. And so like I was in this position for a half of a year or like a full semester. And then I had got basically attacked by one of my residents with like vulgar, you know, racial slurs when they were doing what they had no business do, running around the hallway, busting lights. And I was trying to report them for doing that because that was my job. And so, yeah, they ran down the hallway yelling the N-word, yelling my name. And I left the building, didn't turn back, and left my job. So, like, yeah, my experience with PWIs from middle school to college was tumultuous. And it was just like constantly trying to be a fighter, constantly trying to be resilient. And at the same time, be an educator and be like, look, I'm here. I see what y'all doing. Like literally showing them their face. Like, like this is what y'all doing to me. You know, just being loud, taking up space at the same time. And yeah, that was a hard experience to go through, but it's part of my story, you know.
Yeah. And now, so when it came to like, especially with the microaggressions, because I know for me, with my experience, I don't think I really, I knew when what someone was telling me was like weird or off a little bit, but I didn't necessarily know.
Right.
I didn't always know how to address it either. But it took like maybe some years later, and I was like, wait a minute, that was some
Right.
did you ever have a moment where like, yeah, like when did you really understand and was able to identify like, wait a minute, what they're saying is definitely connected to racism or to biased thinking?
Oh, I didn't get it until college. Like I straight up went through middle school and high school being treated like that and just thinking like, oh, I need to like change the way I talk. My mom put me back together on that one. I need to straighten my hair or, put it in a different style. Not braids though, because I'm gonna get talked about if I wear braids. But Kim Kardashian do it is no problem. Just like there's certain things that they would say to me. Like I feel like there is a good amount of Black culture that's just so wildly different from white culture, like American culture, that like it's the little things. Like even I'm gonna get personal, like even from like during the beginning of puberty, like Black girls don't first go off to like shave their underarms and put on makeup. That's not something that's very common in the Black household to start when you start your puberty. But
because it'll be fast.
Right, because you're gonna be fast if you do that. Exactly. But for white girls, it's not like that. They immediately learn how to shave. They immediately start learning how to put on makeup and all of this, and it's not seen as for them being fast, right? So for me, I'm like now going into puberty in this predominantly white institution, and I got a full set of hair under my underarms, which I am now probably like not shaving at all. But yeah, I did that, and I was talked about like, ew, like why are you not shaving? And then I like asked my mom to do it. She's like, no. And then I do it behind her back and I cut myself up and I'm going to school like hurting because I don't know what I'm doing, And then just having the white girls like paint my face in school, like do makeup on me, even though I didn't like makeup. It was just like they're doing it, you know what I mean? And I'm looking like a clown because my skin tone is different.
Right, because they don't know what they doing.
Right, exactly. So just like dealing with all of that was difficult, but I definitely made some really good friends. I made like 2 best friends, I would say, out of that middle school and high school experience. And the other people, I just think about it like the experiences, like what happened to them? Did they grow out of that? Did they learn that how they were treating me was not okay?
Yeah.
I wonder, because like those kids became adults and became adults with power because they became adults with power because they came from wealthy, well-off families with parents and grandparents that had degrees and generational wealth and stuff like that. So I don't necessarily harp on those days thinking, oh, poor me. I think about like, oh, snap, those people, like, where are they?
Weirdos.
Some of them might listen to this because I be putting they on my social media. I put it out there. I just really hope that, we all learning that they correct their mentality.
Yeah. I know there's several people I've gone to school with, especially in college, who then slid into some DMs, after, even before, Black Lives Matter movement really blew up and became global. And I'll be honest, some of them, a good number of them, I wouldn't even call allies, would call accomplices, because like some of them, will get in there and read somebody else to filth. Like there's not a lot of work I have to do these days.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Which is super dope. But I'm gonna throw in a new question in there too, because I'm thinking about, so we know that like going to we know that when we talk about Black history and we talk about Black history and learning about that in the educational system, especially today where we're having a growing conversation about critical race theory, which is basically like talking about history and Black history and the truth the true experience of Black history in schools, and we have folks who are trying to ban that and take that away from us on one hand, and on the other hand, we have folks who like are trying to play with us and say, oh, but we got Juneteenth, da, 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 you know, all that good stuff, right? That's happening, right? It's a federal holiday. Take this with you, but we don't want to talk about what it is, though. But how did you learn, though? How did you learn about Black history and the true experience of Black history with going to primarily PWIs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely didn't learn it in school. I will say that like the Black mentors that I had in my family, like, well, I mean, not just in my family, but around me, like old teachers from elementary school that continued to follow me, teachers from college that were around me, I learned from them. But I always tell people like, African Americans specifically, I feel maybe other Pan Africans are good at this, but I just don't personally know. African Americans are really good at oral history. Like we tell each other everything that is going on and that happened in the past. And I personally like to sit around with my elders and just listen to them talk about everything that happened. Everything that happened to them back in the day, their grandparents and everything. And I like to listen to my friends' grandparents. So I learned from word of mouth, from oral history. Like when people were learning about Juneteenth, for example, my family's from Galveston, Texas. So like, boom, that's a given. I grew up in Michigan, but my grandma already taught me about Juneteenth because she's from Galveston, Texas, and she didn't know a life of not celebrating Juneteenth on June 19th. Like
that's beautiful.
Right. Yes. And then like the Great Migration from the South to the North to work in the car industry or at these factories. My family went through it, so I knew about it. Housing, like redlining, housing discrimination, partly learned from my family and their own experiences, and partly from books that they would give me, like have me reading and stuff like that. I was always in some books. I was always at a library. So I learned, and I was mostly interested in Black history. So that's how I learned. But definitely like, I don't remember celebrating anything significant in school, you know, or like learning about anything significant in school was always the same. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, you know, it was always that. But for me, what I did in 6th or 7th grade, we had an art project. We took it was art. It was like a mix of everything. All of our subjects. We were supposed to take a person who inspired us and draw a picture of them, paint it in, write a monologue, and perform it. And just like we might have had Spanish mixed in it too. I picked Shirley Chisholm because that was my personal shero. See, you know, and like, who knew about Shirley Chisholm back then? I mean, I definitely did, but like, who else knew that there was a Black woman who in the 70s ran for president and had a really good race, like became one of the main people running on a Democratic ticket for the primaries. Like, who knew about that? Who knew about her as a senator, a Black woman senator, helping to establish the Black Caucus. Me at 12 or 13 years old, I knew about her. I knew everything about her. I celebrate Shirley to this day with like t-shirts and pins, and I love working for Black women's political campaigns. And I helped with Monica Montgomery's campaign.
Monica, we love Monica.
Yes, so right, she's a council member out in San Diego.
Yes, so, the People's Council member.
Exactly. So, you know, like, my granddad, even though he had a 3rd grade education, he was always into like politics and stuff like that. Like he was always at the city town hall meetings, you know, having grievances or just listening, and he would relay the information with me, tell me this is the time you need to turn on the TV to watch it. And
your granddad sounds like me. Our audience knows that's me full force. So we will get along just fine.
Yeah, I had an uncle who was a council member in Pontiac as well. I still have him, thank goodness. So yeah, I had a good recipe because I know there were like a couple other Black people going along my same timeline in the same PWIs that I was at, and they didn't come out like me. They didn't come out bad at all. It's just that they didn't come out necessarily really pushing for the betterment of Black people. Like they aren't driving the same campaign that I am.
Yeah.
And that's because, I had a good recipe of like family and friends and people around me who were like super into uplifting the Black community. At the same time. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I think that's a story very similar to a lot of us, and a lot of our generation of like, we had to learn, even still to this day. The Civil Rights Act was signed when 65, 66 years ago. And even to this day, like we're still fighting for basic education in our neighborhoods. And we're still fighting for, to learn about our history and things like that. So I think a lot of us have a similar experience of learning outside of the schools, and still connecting our cultures.
I think we should be even more upset because like that wasn't the beginning. The Civil Rights Act of 1965 was not the beginning of civil rights. I was telling you earlier that it actually was in about 1865 during the Reconstruction period. We had our first civil rights bill, which was to eliminate racism and the making and enforcement of contracts, which is really important for the free people to be able to begin to establish themselves. And it came with a lot of federally enforced criminal laws. Like if you break that Civil Rights Act, you can get fined or go to jail. And there were federal marshals, there were federal police everywhere in the South trying to enforce the laws that were anti-slavery and trying to, reconstruct our nation. Our economy was dependent on Black enslavement and free labor. So that was like, a violent period that abruptly ended. Like it just ended. They didn't reconstruct nothing. So they didn't reconstruct nothing. So we should be even more, we should go back further than that and be even more upset that we're dealing with what we're dealing with now.
Ooh, I received that. I understand that. So yeah, we'll hold on to that. I'm sure our audience, I hope y'all wrote that down. I hope y'all save that portion, screen record or something, because that's significant information. I mean, and we know that there's been hundreds of years of fighting. But yeah, to put a title to it, and to really have an understanding of it, I think those more information that we're missing in schools, even in households, like in organizations that are fighting for folks, So it's important to dig deeper and go back even further, to
be angry.
Important.
Tap into your anger too when you look at it too. Get mad. I'm mad.
Be mad. And it's okay to be the angry Black woman, angry Black man, whatever.
We got something to be angry about.
Right. We have something to be angry about. That is for sure. So I want to hear, and we'll sum this up too, but like, I want to hear how all of the information, all we just received from you, which is such dope information. I'm truly inspired. And again, I'm gonna say thank you later. Everybody knows I say thank you and gratitude all the time. I'm gonna say thank you later, but I'm gonna take this time now to just say thank you for just all of what you just released to us, all of what you've shown us and already inspired us with. Because I'm like, I'm like vibrating high, making connections over here. I'm motivated, that is for sure. But I definitely want to know how all of those experiences really fueled, in your words in particular, but how they really fueled you making a decision to practice law and civil law, right? You said?
Yeah, I wanted to do civil rights. I went into law school, wanted to do immigration and civil rights. And the reason why I wanted to do immigration is because I've also traveled the world. I've been to 26 countries, I think I mentioned before, and I've seen what it's like to have people who are either undocumented or stateless, like don't have a country of record at all. And I wanted to work with the immigration system to ensure that people aren't stateless or aren't undocumented and have like resources at their disposal to get their citizenship. And so civil rights, y'all know exactly why I went into civil rights, everything that I discussed. So I went into law school, or before law school, I knew I wanted to go to law school knowing that, you know, I had experienced racism, microaggressions myself. My mom was falsely imprisoned. Actually, sorry, scratch that. My mom was falsely arrested. She was taken in handcuffs, put in the back of a car. So technically, if you're in law school, you know that's false imprisonment. But like
even that
layperson's term, you wouldn't say false imprisonment, you say false arrest. So anyway, I had experienced all of that firsthand and just the knowledge of our country's background. I want to go into civil rights. So I went through law school hoping to do that. And I was able to, you know, write my law review note about the first Civil Rights Act, which was for getting rid of discrimination and equal enforcement of contracts. So then I went immediately into immigration law, working for the Department of Justice, for the appeals court. But at the same time, I still work on civil rights matters through my organization, the Black Bar Applicant Fund. I've been working with other organizations like the United for Diploma Privilege campaign to help actually eliminate the bar exam, because we found out last year, like us graduates, there was already public knowledge. There were already articles, like Ebony articles from the 70s about this, but we found out that the bar exam is actually something from Jim Crow era. Like, is the bar exam that we have today is part of institutional racism.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah, so I was part of that campaign while I was studying for the bar exam, and that was, you know, a way to practice civil rights. And we were able to get Washington to eliminate the bar exam last year, Washington State. We were able to get Utah, Oregon, and surprisingly Louisiana. All did not require a bar exam for people who met a certain criteria, which was a good amount of people in that state. And then Washington, D.C. I have my license through their diploma privilege, which also eliminated, I didn't have to take a bar exam for my Washington, D.C. license. And Wisconsin already doesn't have, they never decided to have a bar exam for their state graduates. Because the ABA's racist campaign did not, I guess, influence them after all. Yeah, but like in the early 1910s, the ABA started a campaign to get to purify the legal profession, because 3 Black people had incidentally become members of the bar, because all you had to do back then was like graduate from law school and then maybe answer a couple questions that a judge had for you. That was the bar exam. Go up to the bar, to the judge, and you answer a few questions. Now the bar exam is an exhausting 2 or 3 day relay where you answer 200 multiple choice questions and 6 to 12 essays.
It's expensive.
Yeah, it estimated costs about $15,000 to study for the bar exam. And that includes registration fees, cost of living, any of the materials that you need, the bar exam, bar prep programs. Like normally you need a commercial bar prep program because schooling alone doesn't help. You don't retain all that information for that long. So commercial bar prep alone is usually like $3,000. And then you got to eat, and they don't suggest you work for 10 weeks. So the first time I studied for the bar exam, and then I ended up getting diploma privilege, I didn't work. The second time I studied for the bar exam, and I actually took the California bar exam and passed, I did work. I worked the whole time, except for like 2 weeks before I had to take leave without pay. Now, just imagine a brand new graduate. Yeah, I had scholarships, but like I said, I didn't have money to begin with. So my scholarships were it. My scholarships were it. I was like surviving off of that alone.
Especially in expensive ass California.
I started in California, moved to DC. Ain't no better. I'm gonna tell you that. It ain't no better. Ain't no better. Maybe worse. Actually, maybe worse. So yeah. Wow. Yeah, I will say that like I've indirectly somehow managed to do civil rights and immigration at the same time. Yeah, my experience from PWI definitely led to all of that and motivated me to do all of this. Yeah. It's my fuel.
Which is great. I'm checking the time, but I'm like, I want to know so many other things. Especially because, like, how is that? So you work for the DOJ?
Yes, I love it.
And which is good. That's a. Yeah. I'm not gonna say that's a first, but that's good. Just kidding. It's not a first. No. But immigration and immigration law right now is a hot topic. And I don't think a lot of people, I don't even know if a lot of people are really trying to learn. They want to talk about immigration.
Right. You don't even know what you're talking about.
There's a lot of shit bugs just do not know and understand. That is, I'll be honest, that's the conversation I really am picky with who I talk to because I am
international.
Yeah. I try to like downplay it, but you know. But I'm really interested in what that's like for you because I know it from the standpoint of asylum seekers. I know it from the standpoint of undocumented folks. I know it from the standpoint of folks who right now are camped out in a community of tents right at the border between Tijuana and San Diego, or Tijuana, Mexico and the United States, Tijuana and San Diego. I know it from that end, but I'm definitely interested. If you have the time, I know we have 6 minutes, so let me know. I have time.
I can't go too much into immigration. I could just say that I get a range of stuff. So I have had a segment of like working on cases like that, and I'll continue to work on cases like that. But then I have a segment of like people who have been here for a long term, people who were legally permanent residents and for whatever reason are losing that, people who are married and getting visas. Like I see a wide spectrum. So it's kind of like I have like a hopeful view and then like, you know, that other view of just like, whoa, that's a lot going on. But I do enjoy working. I work for like a neutral party. I work for the court. So I enjoy being able to just like not have to contemplate and deal with, you know, like there's a lot of pressure to represent someone who's in that position because there's not always relief. There's just not legally.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably the most that I can say about it.
Okay, girl, that's all I'll take. Okay. Yeah. If I stop hitting record, I'm just kidding. But I'm happy to hear that, you know, you love it and that there's fulfillment in what you're doing. Because it definitely sounds connected directly with like just your passion, even starting from a younger age, and your determination to help people. Which is, I think is such a beautiful thing because we don't think of lawyers as being helpful.
Yeah. No, oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm trying to change that. I mean, like Genevieve and I worked a lot with this thing called the neighborhood law school. I don't know if you heard of it,
Yeah,
but
I have.
yeah,
I've attended. Yeah, years ago.
yeah, that's crazy. Okay, maybe we didn't meet, but like I definitely volunteer with it. I think maybe 2 years in a row or 1 year. Either way, so I try to get involved in things that help people realize like lawyers aren't the enemy. You can get legal services that are affordable. You can get legal services that are going to be tools for self-help, you know, when you're working through the pro se process, like representing yourself, but you just need somebody to guide you in that. And then also, if you are paying for legal services, a lot of times it's worth the money. There are ways to like get like basically, I know some people who have had type of like legal insurance that they pay into monthly that will help them cover a lawyer for what they may need. So it's good to ask your job if that is an option, because some jobs like you can, that's a benefit you can opt into. But a lot of people try to get around hiring a lawyer. No bueno. Definitely hire a lawyer or consult a lawyer when you're in a sticky situation. And not even a sticky situation meaning something bad, but if you like starting a company or something, go to a lawyer.
That's where, for our audience, if y'all, that's where Marissa came into play. Marissa Talbert, she was on our show 2 seasons ago. Yeah, and I know that's her focus. And you just reminded me, I was following the case of a man who was representing himself.
With
murder case in Florida, he was representing himself. Or really what was like triple homicide or something like that. It was a bad
maybe
situation.
One attempted because his son, I know his son went up to speak.
One attempted because his son testified. And he had to like cross-examine his son, and he legitimately asked, like, "Did I hurt you?" His son was like, "Yes, you stabbed me, bro." Like,
like this is not. I mean, he definitely put on theater. I say, like, you know, that's part of litigation, theater, being able to perform well, but like a defendant shouldn't be speaking that much. Like, for real, like, cause like a defendant can really go the whole trial not saying one thing, and that's probably in the defendant's best interest. So that was like, as a lawyer, someone who's been trained in law, that was hard to watch for sure. I wouldn't recommend it. And I don't know where his case is gonna go.
Definitely he was charged.
Okay. I didn't figure out what happened at the end, but
charged and convicted. That didn't take long for them at all. It was like throw him under the jail.
I know people who fire. I will say this. Let me put in a plug for public defenders. Some of my best friends are public defenders. Okay, public defenders can be great, can be better than private defense attorneys. Okay, give your public defender a chance. They do know what they're talking about. Okay, like, let them defend you. Now, there are situations where your public defender wants you to take some insane plea and there's literally like no evidence, or like that was too much time and it just kind of looks like they want to get you off their book. A private defense attorney could do the same thing. Then go consult someone else, but like, don't be so quick to like get rid of somebody just because they're a public defender. Like, they can work miracles and they're very passionate about their job. A lot, like going through law school, like people who wanted to be public defenders were the most passionate. The whole entire time they knew exactly, like, I'm going to be a public defender. Like, they kept applying. They did a ton of internships with the public defender's office, like spent so much of their time not getting paid working for this effort. So like, yeah, man, like public defenders get kicked around a lot, like reputation wise, but they're great. Trust them.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I agree. I was like, well, I can't. I'm about to put my whole record on the line out here. I'm gonna refrain from doing that. But okay, last question to you. All right. how are you using your platform, in your words, how are you using your platform to influence this generation and the next? I've already kind of gave you a little bit of that. I've already said a little bit of that.
Right.
I want to hear from you.
Yeah. I definitely want to make the journey easier for this generation, people coming right after me. And the next, even if somebody is older than me and trying to pursue law or get scholarships, like I got my aunt, about the time I graduated law school, I got her to go to law school. So yeah. But I'm constantly doing little informational interviews with people. And I started my Black Bar Applicant Fund, or AKA Community Fund for Black Bar Applicants. And so far, we've raised more than $60,000 and given scholarships to more than 100 bar applicants. We've given resources to them, free bar prep courses. I told you that's $3,000 ticket. We've given more than I want to say 22, 23 people free bar prep courses,
awesome.
Free bar prep books. We did have to recycle some books, have used books, give it to people, but that's still, that's something at the end of the day that somebody may not have had. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm just using my voice to just relay this information, using my time, related information, and using my organization to get these funds back to our community, and pinpoint it, that we need Black lawyers. Let's pinpoint it right at this moment where it's either make or break for us. Yeah.
That's amazing. Listen, look, this is why this podcast exists.
Yeah.
This is exactly why this podcast exists, because we have some amazing people in our generation who are doing amazing things, and who are leaving a legacy that is unmatched. So much gratitude. Thank you so much for being here. Mendisa's going to be so jealous.
Oh my gosh.
She's going to be so jealous because she's always she's always just in awe of every guest. So I think I'm in awe for the both of us. But thank you. But let our audience know how they can find you, how they can connect with you. You listed quite a few handles already too. So feel free to list those again, and give us a reminder.
Okay. So on Instagram and Twitter, I'm at Octavia Viento, and that's OctaviaViento. And then you can find me on LinkedIn, Octavia Carson. And then my organization is blackbarapplicantfund.com and at Black Bar App Fund on Twitter and Instagram. Yep.
Thank you so much. And of course, you all know where to find us. That is at Living Millennial Productions on Instagram, Living Millennial Productions on Facebook, livingmillennialproductions.com, and now on YouTube, Living Millennial Productions as well. This has been an amazing conversation. Again, I am your favorite host, Brittany. This was Living Millennial.
We are living millennial. Oh, ba, 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 ba.
All right, friends, that's our show. Tune in next time.
Hey, more to come.
More to come.
Be sure to subscribe to our show, follow us on IG, and tell us what you think.